Those of us who understand evolution, who accept evolution, are aware that when many creationists use the terms microevolution and macroevolution, that a lot of what they are describing as microevolution is really macroevolution. But I've also noticed that they misuse the term macroevolution as well. They clearly misuse both terms, as far as I can see. What they describe as microevolution are slight variations that show up in a species that do not change its morphology very much. Its basic morphology. What they describe as macroevolution are huge leaps in the morphology of a species. Where that line is not very clear to a biologist, because all change in a species, all change in a population is micro from one to the next. Yeah. If our descendants venture out into space and inhabit many different worlds, and some of us look like Twi'leks or Klingons or Wookiees or Time Lords or whatever, that would be macroevolution. But the creationists would look at the Wookiee and say, yeah, that's macroevolution. No way, it is still a biped with two eyes, and it's microevolution. But if one planet were to have Mandalorians and another Time Lords and another Betazoids, they all look exactly like humans. But they were incapable of breeding with each other. The creationists would say that that's microevolution, but they're incapable of breeding with each other. If I had a jar of fruit flies, and I were to give you half of those fruit flies, by the next summer, we would still have fruit flies in the jar, but they would be incapable of breeding with each other. They keep evolving new genes. They keep evolving on and on. So part of their evolution is just going to be that their chromosomes are going to change to a point where they can no longer splice, and their genitals might even change a little bit. So even if they could evolve into the Gand from Star Wars universe, a species of flies. But even if they don't, that is macroevolution. If they evolve into a humanoid race that can fly starships, that's if they're still capable of breeding with the fruit flies in the jar, that really is microevolution. dogs we see a lot of diversity in their skull shape, in just almost everything about dogs. Their pug, for example, has a smooth head skull like a human, whereas wolves and many of the larger breeds of dogs have a sagittal crest along their skull like a chimpanzee, like many early human species. The pugs have a flat face, whereas many dogs have a snout, like primitive humans had a snout. Other apes have a snout. In the the creationists would say that in the humans, these wildly different traits were would have been macroevolution and thus impossible. But we see the exact same variation in dogs. And this variation, they say in dogs, it is microevolution. And it is correct, it is microevolution. If we only had the bones, we would classify them as different species. Just it's very much exceptional thinking. But if you actually get what the definitions of microevolution and macroevolution are, then it makes sense. If they're capable of interbreeding, it's micro. Whether they, even if they look like different species. If they're not capable of interbreeding, but they look like the same species, or whether or not they look like the same species, if they're not capable of interbreeding, macroevolution. If we were capable of interbreeding with other apes, even our extreme differences with them would be microevolution. Don't breed with other apes.